Hello, this is Claus Jensen presenting a game from the European Team Championships, which ended only yesterday. I'm going to show you a game from the last round, which was played on the very special date, November the 11th, 2011. It was not only a special date, it was a special match as well, because Hungary beat Bulgaria on all four boards. And on the top board, in this match, Peter Leko gave us something special to look at in his game against Veselin Topalov. So please enjoy the game Leko Topalov played only 2 days ago in the European Team Championships in Porto Carras, Greece. Leko is playing the white pieces and we are soon having a Grünfeld defense game. d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, d5. And with c takes d5, Leko opts for the exchange variation. And here both knight f3 and bishop c4 are more popular than the move that Leko plays, which is bishop e3, but it allows him to move his rook away from the long diagonal very quickly, and also giving him the option of putting the rook on c1 rather than on b1. So c5 and rook c1 immediately. Queen a5, queen d2, castles, knight f3. And black's strategy in the Grünfeld is to challenge the white center, and therefore Topalov's rook d8 is very logical. The d4 pawn is under pressure, although it's defended 4 times and only attacked 3 times. And to illustrate how quickly the d4 pawn can be in trouble, just look at a line like, for example, bishop e2 here. Then c takes, queen takes d2. And if bishop or knight recaptures on d2, white has only one defender left of the d4 pawn, while black has 2 attackers. So for example, bishop takes d2. Then black has these 2 attackers against only one defender. But black cannot take the pawn at this point, because then the bishop on c8 would be hanging, which illustrates why c1 is a good square for the white rook. So, okay, this was a sideline discussion. Let's get back to the game, which continued d5. To avoid all this pressure on d4. e6, Topalov immediately challenges the d5 pawn. Bishop g5. With this move, Leko spends a move to block the Grünfeld bishop. f6 followed, bishop e3. And perhaps c4 is a move here, consolidating the d5 pawn. I don't know if it has been played before, but it looks like an option. But bishop e3 was a move that Leko played in the game. Knight c6, possible because the pawn is pinned to the queen in the d file. Bishop d3 is an interesting move, which leaves the d5 pawn without protection, and also unpins the pawn on d5. E takes d5, e takes d5, and now Topalov plays the interesting move c4. He sacks a pawn for 2 reasons. 1, he prevents Leko from playing c4 to defend his d5 pawn. And 2, he can develop his bishop, taking advantage of the pin in the d-file, and put a lot of pressure on d5, which is to be seen after bishop takes c4, bishop e6. Now d5 is attacked 3 times, and only defended twice. So Leko adds a 3rd defender by playing rook d1. But the answer from Topalov is, of course, to add a 4th attacker by playing knight e7. And the strategy of sacking a pawn to prevent the c-pawn from defending d5 seems to be a success. White has no way to defend d5 now. But white has an interesting option here. He can sack his queen. And that was in fact what Leko did in the game. He played d takes e6 here. And this idea is not new. It was tried last year in the Russian championships, and I will tell you a little bit more on that later. But if, for example, white just castles here, then bishop takes, and knight takes, and black would have a very good game. So the queen sack came, and of course Topalov took the queen on d2, rook takes d2, and queen takes c3. And white only has a rook and a bishop for the queen, which is normally not quite enough. But is soon apparent that the white rooks and the white bishops are very strong in this open position. Bishop b3 followed queen c1, rook d1, queen c3, rook d2, queen c1, rook d1, queen c3, and Leko was only teasing. He was not intending to go for a threefold repetition, so now came king e2, a5, rook d7, a4, and with rook c1, Leko puts questions to Topalov's queen. And where should he put his queen now? As I said before, the right rooks and bishops are very strong in this fairly open position, and an option could be for Topalov to play queen b4 here, and after bishop c4, bishop f8, knight d2, intending rook b1, we have a very interesting position. But in the game, Topalov decided, in fact, to give up his queen by playing queen b2 check. And rook c2 followed, and now the black queen is lost in any case. He could have tried queen a3, but then bishop c5, a takes b3, bishop takes a3, pawn takes the rook, and after bishop c1, it's a difficult endgame for black. The c2 pawn will surely be lost, and also the b7 pawn will go. A possible line could be knight c6 here, rook takes b7, rook takes a2, rook c7, threatening e7, looks strong, and here Rybka suggests bishop h6 for black, but after rook check, king g7, bishop takes, king t2, white has an advantage. So queen a3 looks better for white, and in the game Topalov played queen b1, then came knight d2, and the queen is trapped. A takes b3, knight takes b1, b takes c2, knight c3, knight f5, and bishop d2. And after 30 moves, we are still following the game Potkin-Svitler from the final of the Russian Championships 2010. In modern chess, these mega theory games become more and more regular. And in this position, Svitler played rook e8 to address the problem with the white e6 pawn immediately. But in this game, Topalov tries h5, which I cannot see had the same logic to it as rook e8 has. I think both sides should pay all possible attention to the opponent's passed pawn and eliminate them as soon as possible. And I don't see how h5 helps black getting rid of the e6 pawn. It does of course give luft to the black king, which could allow the black rook to leave the back rank, but h5 is a questionable move, and it was in fact possible for Leko to play e7 immediately. e7, then rook e8, and knight g5. King f7, rook takes b7, and knight takes e7, then simply exchange on e7, and pick up the pawn on c2, and leaving white with the winning endgame. But Leko didn't play e7 here. Instead he played king d3 to eliminate the c2 pawn immediately. b5 came from Topalov, and then came e7. And now rook e8, which is too late, knight d7, king f7, and Leko has time to pick up the pawn on c2, and he does so. And if now knight takes e7, then bishop b4, bishop f8, and after king b3, Leko can at any time mass exchange on e7, pick up the pawn on b5, and having a 1 endgame because of the a pawn. So Topalov instead played rook c8 check, then came knight c7, and knight takes e7. Topalov wins the pawn, but has a losing position. Bishop b4 from Leko, bishop f8, king b3, rook b8, and knight d5. And again, Leko threatens the mass exchange on e7, and Topalov decides to die quickly rather than playing out a lost pawn endgame, so he plays king e6, and then came rook d6 check, king e5, and after f4 check, Topalov resigns because now he loses the knight on e7, and the game is completely hopeless. And although this was a highly theoretical game following a game from last year for 30 moves, I think it was an interesting game, and I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and I hope to see you on my chess website at klausjensen.com. Bye bye for now.